Welcome one and all to Mega Publix. I'm your host Laurelian and this is Strategy 202. Strategy 202 is going to be it's going to be my new web series, focusing on game mechanics and general strategy, preferably normally in a multiplayer setting, but not always. It's going to be deeper than, oh, click on this and this on your UI and that'll bring up your character sheet and this is where your traits are. No, it's going to be much deeper than that. We're going to have our first lesson here is going to be focusing on Gavelkind inheritance, as well as we'll talk about some of the other inheritance types later. And then later sessions, we're going to have, the next session is probably going to be how to find claim and how to get claim when it's not evident. And maybe we'll have some later deeper talk about multiplayer strategy. So sit back and relax and enjoy. So, this is Earl T1 of Duchy, this province down here. Now what I've done is we're going to use council commands to set up scenarios here that allow us to experiment with it. Right now I have all of Ireland. I've given it all to myself. I have 5 sons and 2 daughters. Now, oops, wrong button. Here we go. Alright, so the laws of my county, and I'm a count, I'm not a duke. We'll be experimenting with duchies and how they come into this in a little bit. Right now, the county laws for my inheritance is agnatic-cognatic, meaning that my sons all inherit before my daughters, and Gavelkind. You can also see that here. So Gavelkind means it's going to separate out evenly, giving the most to my oldest son, the second most to my second oldest son, the third most to my third oldest son, and the rest equally to everyone else, favoring the older children if it's an unequal amount to spread out. And I hope that'll make sense. You'll notice something strange here. My second son is the character that I'm going to be. Now, this isn't elective Gavelkind. This is regular Gavelkind, so there's no election process. I'm not choosing that this is going to be my heir. The game is. And once I use council commands to murder myself here... Oops. I'll explain why that is. So we need to kill 506451. Alright. So, let's get this out of the way. I am the 3-year-old, the oldest, my brother, who would normally be the one who inherits, is my heir. Now, you're probably asking yourself, well, why didn't I become the oldest character? So the first thing that this game tries to do is the oldest son is going to get the most. So, and the other thing that this game tries to do is keep dejure provinces together. It's keeping dejure duchies, keeping dejure kingdoms together as best as it can. Now, sometimes it doesn't always do this, and we'll get into a scenario later where it doesn't. But in this case, excuse me, the Duchy of Ulster has 4 provinces within it. So it's going to try to keep them together when it distributes it. Now my main title, and your main title is the title that you're going to keep playing as, was Deshamhen? However that's pronounced. I'm sorry if I offend anyone with my terrible Gaelic pronunciations. Was my main title. So my main title is going to be the character that I play as, since it's the second most amount of territory when it divides it up. It's going to go to my second son. And as you can see, the other de jure duchies, even though they're not created duchies, go evenly to the rest of my children. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a duchy into the mix. Alright, so good old T1, now the Duke of Mumu. That duchy being these 3 provinces here, and that duchy being his primary title. So as you can see, my current heir is once again, is my firstborn son. Why is it my firstborn son instead of my secondborn son? Because it's going to try to give the biggest thing to the firstborn, and that factors in some way, shape, or form the number of vassals that'll be under the title. So because this is my primary title, it's going to try to make all the vassals that are not de jure to any particular title that's going to be handed out try to stay with my primary title. So when I die, poor T1 is going to bite the dust again. 5, 0, 6, 1. Alright, so let's see how this spread itself out. So, the Duke of Mumu is my firstborn son. As you can see, it's still all under the Duchy of Mumu, because there were no other duchies in here. If we were over our vassal limit, then my realm would break apart. Or if there were other duchies, it would also break apart, and we're going to show you that after this. But because I wasn't over my vassal limit, my realm is stable and in one piece. Now, I acquired these 3 counties here, all once again in that de jure area, because again it wants to keep the de jures together, and because this was my main title, I'm sorry, because the duchy is the main title, that's the character I'm playing, because the duchy is, or excuse me, because these were all within the duchy and it wants to try to keep these titles together, it gave these 3 to me. If I would have been Duke of Ulster, the result would have been different. I would have had these 4 provinces. But instead I was Duke of Mumu, and because of that I ended up with these 3. Now, again, it wants to give the second son the second most, because there are 4 provinces here in Ulster. It gave them to the second son. 2, 3, 4, yep. And he also now has claim on the petty kingdom of Mumu, my duchy. However, I don't have claim on any of my siblings. So, you'll have if they stay within the realm, I'm not gonna get claim on them. Let's see now. And then, accordingly, the rest of my siblings all inherited these 2 province areas that are all within the same duchy. Again, it wants to keep de jures together. It wants to keep vassals that aren't linked to a de jure title underneath the main title. It gives the biggest thing, which does include the amount of vassals being given, to the firstborn child. It gives the second biggest thing to the second child. It gives the third biggest thing to the third child. And then it splits up the rest equally among the rest of the children, as best as it can, favoring giving leftover stuff to the older children. Now, this isn't an exact formula, but this is what we've come to, or this is what has been shown through running these tests. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to show is multiple duchies. Alright, so good old T1, he's doing a little bit better for himself. Not only is he the Duke of Mumu, petty king of Mumu, but he is also the Duke of Ulster. So let's see what happens now when I remove him from existence. Alright, so. Let's click on him. Okay, so my firstborn son is who I'm playing. As you can see, you. I am now petty king of Mumu, or the Duchy of Mumu. It's all really semantics. It's good for immersion, and I really do like immersion. My brother is the Duke of Ulster. So, let's see now. The realm split off. Now, that's important. Now, you might be asking yourself, but Lorelian, Ulster has 4 provinces, so it's bigger, so it should have gone to the first son. And Mumu, which has 3 provinces, should have gone to the second. That would be the case. However, as I mentioned, Mumu was my primary title, so it tries to keep as many non-de jure vassals as it can under the primary title. Alright, so that makes Mumu bigger than Ulster. Now, because it tries to keep de jure areas together, if my primary title was Ulster, when my previous character died, I would have had these 4 provinces instead of these 3, plus I'd have all these vassals who happen to be my brothers. Now, the other thing you're going to want to notice about this is that I have claim on the Duchy of Ulster. The Duke of Ulster has claim on Mumu. The Duke of Connacht, my even younger brother, has claim on both Mumu and Ulster. So you're going to get claim on anything that's not under your control. And when I say under your control, that's including vassals that come underneath you. So because Connacht, my brother, in what would be the Duchy of Connacht here, is under my control, because he's sworn to me, I'm not going to have claim on him. But my brother, Duke of Ulster, I am going to have claim on, and he's going to have claim on me. So the next major thing is how kingdoms divide. Now, kingdoms, unlike those duchies, all have separate crown laws. The succession of all the duchies that I have, if I was just a duke, is determined by my primary title. The succession of my kingdoms is determined by each kingdom has its own laws. To say that again in a way that I think sounds a little bit less stupid, but probably still sounds pretty stupid. If I am just a duke and have multiple duchies, all those duchies act as though they have the same laws as my primary title. If I am a king, all those different kingdoms act with different laws. Alright, so now I have become king of Mumu. The de jure kingdom of Mumu. And I have become king of England. So now, Mumu is Gavelkind. England is Gavelkind. They're both, it's agnatic, so only guys can inherit, but I've got a bunch of male children, so that doesn't matter right now. If they were both Gavelkind, and I had a male child and a daughter, it'll all go to the male child. If I just had 2 daughters, if all these other children were dead, it would go, suddenly I can't talk. Okay, Mumu would go to the firstborn daughter, and then the King of England, or the Kingdom of England, would go somewhere else. Alright, so it's Gavelkind now. Let's go ahead and kill myself once again, just to show you where it goes. And then we've got... Oops. So right now, this is both of them with Gavelkind. Alright, so my primary title is the Kingdom of Mumu. So it tried to keep me playing the King of Mumu. Let's cut this up here. My second son is the King of England. Now, remember that thing that I was saying where it tries to keep the bigger stuff going to the older son? With kingdoms, it tries to keep the primary title with the oldest son. Or with the oldest character that will inherit. No, with the oldest son is a better way to say it. You'll notice that I was actually able to get some of England. This guy ended up becoming my vassal. Now, what it's going to try to do is, I've ran this experiment a couple times, and sometimes it's giving me much larger chunks of England. Because what it wants to do is it wants to compensate for the oldest having less land in Mumu by giving him some of the vassals from England. Sometimes when I've ran the simulation, I've ended up getting nearly half of England from my as vassals. In this particular case, I only got one little part. So the game is trying to rectify the fact that the oldest son is not getting the most. Alright. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to see how Primogeniture mixes into this and changes succession between these two kingdoms. T1 of the Test Dynasty is back again. Once again, King of England, King of Mumu. And this time we're going to change up the succession laws of Mumu. We're going to make it Primogeniture. England is still going to be Gavelkind. And then we'll see what happens when good old T1 bites the dust again. Alright, so once again with kingdom titles, it tries to make the primary heir, or it tries to give the primary title to the primary heir. And you'll notice that the Kingdom of England was given to my second brother, because it tries to force, with kingdoms again, now this is again different than duchies, with kingdoms, it tries to force the primary title onto the primary heir. Now again, you'll notice that I got a little part down here. Actually, this is part of the Kingdom of Wales. So this is a non-de jure vassal, and this goes with what I was saying earlier, where it tries to keep non-de jure vassals with the primary title. The reason I didn't get this is because this guy is sworn to England, and I believe his primary title, the Duchy of Essex. Yeah, the Duchy of Essex is de jure England, so he's gonna so the game is gonna try and keep that vassal with England. The comment that I had earlier was about it trying to give more to the... that sometimes it'll violate the whole trying to keep de jure kingdoms together to give more to the primary title on succession. Those simulations that I ran were all before Way of Life. The Way of Life DLC that came out recently, where I would end up getting actually this whole duchy the majority of the time, sometimes random other duchies, but most of the time this duchy, probably because again this is part of Wales actually down here. However, it doesn't seem to want to do that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check whether or not this guy was sworn to this guy. and see if that makes a difference when I run when I run the crown laws in the opposite way. So anyway, back to this. Okay, so the Kingdom of Mumu Primogeniture. Everything that was de jure Kingdom of Mumu is going to follow Primogeniture. So all these counties that I control directly, because that's how the simulation's been set up with me controlling all the counties in Mumu directly, are going to stay under my firstborn. So all these counties are going to act like they're Primogeniture. Whereas England split off because it's Gavelkind. So England says that my firstborn son, he's already getting stuff. Therefore, the next thing, or the next title, has to go to my secondborn son. Now, Gavelkind will also look at what your current sons or heirs hold in determining who gets the most out of Gavelkind. So if you've got a bunch of sons who already have a bunch of counties, and I'll run a simulation on that as well in a second, it will give the sons who already have less or who have less things more than it does the sons who have more. Alright, let's run a simulation where England is Primogeniture and Mumu is Gavelkind. Alright, so in this simulation, England is Primogeniture, Mumu is Gavelkind. Let's see what happens when I die. Now this is again reversed compared to the previous situation where Mumu, my primary title, was Gavelkind, and England was my secondary title, was Primogeniture. I'm sorry, where Mumu, my primary title, was Primogeniture, and England was Gavelkind. Alright, the first thing to notice is that the kingdoms stayed together. So it sorts out your primary title first. So this Gavelkind doesn't detect that my firstborn son is already getting England. Because it goes, or it starts with, Gavelkind starts by looking at the primary title. And then spreads everything out with the primary title, and then so on, and then so on, and then so on. The order beyond the primary title, I'm not sure of. And if I do run some simulations to find that out in more detail, I will let you know later. But as it stands, Gavelkind sorts out your primary title first. So if you've got a bunch of kingdoms and you're trying to figure out which one should I set to Primogeniture first, it should not be your primary title. Because if it's your primary title, the kingdoms will divide, even though the first kingdom is under Primogeniture. So, let's see what my kids got. So, my secondborn is in charge of Ulster again. My next is in charge of the Connacht region. My next in charge of the Meath region. My next in charge of the Leinster region. And I didn't have any counties in England at the time, so they didn't inherit anything from England. And once again, I don't have claims on any of their stuff. They have claims on Mumu and England. So the next thing that we're going to test out is grandchildren and inheritance. So let me set up another simulation. Alright, so the simulation took a little bit to set up. I changed my primary title to this county up here in Ulster. So that way, my firstborn son, for simplicity's sake, will inherit my primary title. So it's just to stop it from being confusing. So, the other thing I've done is I've given my firstborn son a son, my secondborn son a son. I've aged them a little bit too. My firstborn daughter a daughter, and my secondborn daughter a son. So the first step here, dead people can't inherit, so we're going to kill my firstborn son, then we're going to kill me, and then we'll see what happens. So, firstborn son, dead. Me, you'd think I'd have my character ID memorized by now, considering how many times I have butchered myself. Me dead. So be it. Okay, so let's see how this works. So I am my second-born son, acquiring all of Ulster. And again, I started as a count, so this all should divide among counts. Let's see now. My brother, or the third-born son, inherited this stuff right here. All of Mumu. The fourth-born, the fourth-born inherited the Duchy of... Well, what would be the Duchy of Connacht. Again, they're all counts at this very moment, for simplicity's sake, so that way everything divides easily. The next son down the line inherited this right here, and the son of my heir inherited, or the son of my firstborn son, my grandson, inherited this right here. So, to be noted, from this example here, the firstborn will inherit via something that we call in the legal field by representation. So he will inherit in the place of his father. But with Gavelkind, even though his father was first in line, even though his father was the oldest among the sons, he is put in the back of the line. So he is inheriting with Gavelkind through his father, who is dead. Even though his father's dead and dead people can't inherit, he's inheriting as though he was his father, but he's inheriting as though he was last in line to inherit. So this time, we're going to do the same thing, except with Primogeniture. So, when we kill my son, 6, 4, 5, 4. Oops. And he is unfortunately dead. And then I will pass away. So you'll notice that my grandson inherited, again, by representation, so in the place of his father. So when it's in Gavelkind, he inherits, grandchildren inherit by representation in place of their father, except it's acting as though their father was the last born instead of the first. That's kind of a difficult concept to understand, and if you don't get it, feel free to message me and I'll see if I can explain it in a way that makes a little bit more sense. I'm a law school student, so that concept of by representation, even though it's not directly stated in the game, makes a lot of sense to me. But some people that can be a very weird concept. So again, if you don't understand it, feel free to message me and hopefully I'll be able to help. So now we're going to try another experiment, and we're going to see if the second oldest son, if his child still inherits by representation in the same way. Alright, so once again, this time we're going to murder my second-born. 4, 5, 5. And then the second-born normally would be inheriting this duchy down here. Moo. Good old Moo. And then we are going to kill me. T1 sadly does not stand a chance. Alright, there we go. So, it looks like it's split up evenly again. Let's get that out of the way. So me as the firstborn son inherited the biggest duchy, Ulster. This was inherited by the thirdborn son, so it skipped the secondborn, gave it to the thirdborn. Let's do this in a way that makes it easier to figure out. So the thirdborn son inherited Mumu, or what would be the Duchy of Mumu if the Duchy of Mumu existed. The fourthborn son inherited what would be Connacht. The lastborn son inherited what would be the Duchy of Dublin. And by representation, the secondborn son kid, the kid of the secondborn, inherited Leinster. So once again, the grandchildren under Gavelkind inherit by representation as though from what their father would get, as though their father was the youngest son. So now, we're going to do one more thing. We're going to kill off all the guys, so none of them inherit, and then we're going to see what happens with the girls under agnatic-cognatic. Alright, so for simplicity's sake, I made the Duchy of Ulster. I have killed off the entire male line. The grandchildren of male kids are dead. It's just my two girls and the firstborn's daughter and the secondborn's son. So, to save some time here, under Gavelkind, it's going to split off as normal. So my firstborn daughter is going to inherit the duchy and the most stuff. And this is with agnatic-cognatic. And my secondborn daughter is going to inherit the other half. Yes, is going to inherit the other half. But, so agnatic-cognatic under Gavelkind acts essentially the same as regular Gavelkind, regardless of how many daughters you have. But, Primogeniture is different. So, let's kill myself under Primogeniture and see what happens. Come on. Show me the character ID. 6, 4, 5, 1. So you will notice that my second-born daughter inherits. And you might be everything, because it's again Primogeniture. And you might be wondering, why is that? Under agnatic-cognatic, if a daughter has a son, they will count as firstborn. My firstborn daughter, if none of them have a son, it'll be as normal. My firstborn daughter only had a daughter. My secondborn daughter had a son. So she inherits before the firstborn, even though the firstborn was born first, under Primogeniture. Under Gavelkind, it's as normal. So, as promised, I'm going to also show you how Gavelkind works when children already have land. Alright, so for this final simulation, I have given my second oldest, who would normally inherit the duchy or the territory within the Duchy of Mumu, the County of Connacht. I've given my third oldest, who normally would inherit the Dutch or what would be in the Duchy of Connacht, Human Hand, which is in Mumu. Alright, so when I kill myself, see what happens. Alright, I am dead. My oldest son has everything within Ulster, and the Duchy of Ulster, because I started with that and made it my primary title. My second-born son, he now has everything within Ulster, even though he would normally inherit everything within Mumu. My third-born son has everything within Mumu, even though he would normally inherit everything in Ulster. Again, it tries to keep dejure territory together. So, sum up of everything before I leave you today. And I hope you were taking good notes. Unfortunately, I can't really give you any sort of quiz. Okay, so anyway. Sum up. It tries to keep dejure land together. If you have kingdom titles, it will force your primary title to go to your primary heir. Or, if you have just ducal titles or just county titles, it will force you to play as whoever would be inheriting your primary title. Your oldest under Gavelkind gets the biggest title unless your primary title is a smaller kingdom. With girls under agnatic-cognatic, if the second-born daughter has a son under Primogeniture, she will inherit first. Otherwise, under Gavelkind, she will inherit the second most, as normal. Let's see now. If you have to change... If you have two kingdoms, like I had Ireland and, well, the Kingdom of Mumu and England, and you have to change one of their kingdom, and you have to change one of their laws to Primogeniture to try to keep your kingdom together, change the secondary title, because it will always, for the sake of who gets what, under Gavelkind, look at how the primary title is distributed first. Under Gavelkind, children that already have titles handed out will alter how Gavelkind works. Or Gavelkind will be altered by titles that children already have. Let's see now. And that, I think, is it. Oh, again, the titles that the children already have, if your primary title being a kingdom and your secondary title also being a kingdom, if your primary title is Gavelkind, I'm sorry, if your primary title is Primogeniture and your secondary title is Gavelkind, your secondary title will look at what your children already have after your primary title is distributed to determine how it distributes. So you want your secondary title to be Primogeniture. If anything was unclear, please feel free to message me on YouTube. If I got something wrong or there was an observation that we made that I walked you through via this and you have different results, please message me and I will attempt to correct it. Thank you very much. Once again, I'm Laurelian. If you like this and would like to see more Strategy 202 in the future, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much. You have been a wonderful audience. And I hope that your realm planning in the future goes exactly how you want it to. Have a lovely night or day wherever the heck you are. Goodbye.